All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully your favorite Chelsea podcasts out there and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, along with Nick here, we're coming to you on a Monday evening in the U.S. after Chelsea win against West Ham at home 2-1. Graham Potter's return was not meant to be. We cast the spells today in this one, and we emerge victorious in this fixture. So, positive vibes on a very awkward deadline day that is going to leave us grasping at straws to understand
Oh,
what
God.
was going on at the sporting director level, Nick. But a win's a win. And that is probably the headline we have to get started with before we talk about the other things.
Win's a win. It was an important 3 points. I mean, there can be no doubt about it. Chelsea left the weekend with a string of just excellent results, one right after the other. Bournemouth losing, Newcastle losing, and Man City losing. So it just kind of opened the door for fourth place to be reclaimed. I hate that we're like the old Arsenal team looking for that fourth place, but in a very, very tight table, results like this and weekends like this can really matter. And while the game was as slow and painful and awful to watch as the whole Graham Potter era was, the result was decent and hopefully, gives the guys something to hang on to here.
Yeah, in the would you rather type of conversation, and you're met with a touchline of Enzo Maresca and Graham Potter, I think you're still taking Enzo Maresca on the day over Graham Potter.
Yeah.
After
Well,
this
I mean,
match.
for now, yeah, we'll see how the season ends up, right? But yeah.
So we're going to get into the match. We'll break down some of the specifics in there, talk about first half, second half, things that we'd like to see, including multiple uses of subs early in the match from Enzo Maresca. So some real opportunity to credit him for his second half adjustments in this one. We'll also take a look at maybe just some of the things that we have some questions around. And then the transfer window. Deadline day happened. It's over. The decisions are locked for the men's senior team. And we have some reactions to them, and it's probably going to be the least positive part of the podcast. So positive parts about the win, stay tuned for that part. Stuff about the transfer window where we beat up on what did or didn't happen, that comes near the end of the podcast. Look, before we do that, 3-word match reviews, Nick. Opportunity for the people to share their thoughts, share their opinions, and help tell the tale of what happened on the day.
Yeah. Matt Fitz with the obligatory lads gave everything. There's no doubt about it. Apparently, Potter actually said that in his post-game press conference. So, yikes. Craig Ledoux with early subs, dubs, which is nice. Agababa. That's a fun one. Substitutions ain't physics. That's good. Philip O'Neill, Potter, ... Harry situation. Yeah, pretty much. PU with tariffs on iron. tough beat there. And then Caroline with it's a win and an exclamation point on that, Dan. What about you?
I went taking full advantage, which is exactly what you talked about at the top of the podcast. We had an opportunity to get back into top 4, to create some separation against teams who lost over the weekend. And if we didn't win this one, that was going to be another one of these matches where you had an opportunity to put some distance, to gain some ground, and help solidify or at least lay some cement that hopefully dries and leaves you in 4th or 5th position by the end of the season. And so hats off to the team for getting it done. It didn't look very promising in the first half, but a bit of a gritty result and, well fought from some of the subs to make it happen. What'd you do?
Yeah, it was a reversal of the way that we have been playing, which is start fast, finish not so fast. It was a little bit different. I went with reviewing the reviewers. I think once we get to the transfer part, we're going to have some conversations and some words. So how about that?
That is very fair. So before we get into all the match details, as always, thank you for supporting the podcast. You can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's always appreciated. Subscribe on YouTube. You can like and comment on the videos and hit the bell icon to get notified when we drop something new. You also can sign up for our free weekly newsletter, the London Blue Dispatch. One came out just today. after the match. Sam putting together some wonderful notes about this one. So get involved there. And you can sign up for our free or paid version of our Discord community. And even though we said January 31st was the last day to book the trip, if you do after this win, if you're feeling frisky and saying, you know what, Chelsea won
Special.
one, well, we could still fit in one or two more people. Maybe a
Yeah.
few more. We can make it happen. You just got to let us know now. Get involved. The XL Tour links in the show notes or the description.
Mhm.
Happy to get you sorted with our friends over there. But we're like 30 plus now, Nick, and it's going to be a big group.
It's going to be a big, big group. Yeah. So probably our biggest group ever. If last minute you want to get involved, and tip that thing to 35, go for it. But yeah, we're working on our live show. We're working on
Maybe a little
which
classic football
pubs.
shirts
Yeah,
location.
maybe,
Maybe. Who
if you're into
knows?
that sort of thing, I don't know. Just, working on that and working on the pubs, working on all sorts of fun activities for the group. Yeah, of course, email us at contact@londonisbluepodcast.com and we will take care of you.
All right, so it was West Ham this past Monday, the 3rd of February in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. That's right, a win at home, 2-1 to the
Hmm.
Chelsea. Jared Bowen in the 42nd minute. Pedro Neto coming on. As much as VAR wanted to take it away, he would not be denied. 64th minute goal. Then Wan-Bissaka gave Cole Palmer's goal a little bit of the extra assist to make sure it got across the line. And that was how it shook out. I mean, it was going in either way, right, Nick?
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And we appreciate Wan-Bissaka going the extra mile to ensure that it's guided into the back of the net.
Yeah, not often you get the red carpet experience for a goal heading in there, but he made sure to deliver on that one. And just as a reminder, the lineup was Jorgensen between the sticks, taking over for Sanchez.
Big call.
Big decision. Would have gone down very poorly if he had made an error leading to goal. That's for sure. Reece James captained the side, the right back spot. He ended up getting subbed off in the 61st minute. He had Tosin next, Levi Colwell, and then Mark Cucurella as your back line. You had Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. And then it was Jadon Sancho, as we discussed on the pre-match preview.
Hmm.
Cole Palmer, Nani Madueke, and Nico Jackson up top. It was Guiu, Gusto, and Kunku, and Pedro Neto, as we discussed, goal scorer, coming in all earlier, and then a little bit of a wonderful Trev Chalba sub in to get Cole off and get him some nice
Hmm.
applause on the day, too, for a good performance from him. Our friends Josh, Ty, Kiernan, and Robert all sitting on the bench in this one.
Yeah, indeed. It was an interesting one. We'll talk about this because the subs made 4 different formations for the first time in a long time.
Sure.
That's one of the talking points, especially for the second half. But yeah, it was an interesting sub pattern. I mean, Giu coming in a full, 10 minutes before Nkunku. That's saying something out loud that, I think as the window was about to close in West London, that was whoa, that's a big moment for the young buck. And also I think the way that the team kind of shaped up after Reese went off was an interesting sort of nugget for future reference. So yeah, lots to kind of take out of this one.
Yeah, very interesting how the post sub lineup of average position puts Pedro Neto as the furthest forward player, with Giu being a little far removed behind him. And then it was basically like Cucurella and Kunku right on top of each other in like the left forward
No.
spot.
Yeah.
Like very interesting, but it was needed because West Ham were willing to play away to really frustrate this team, to set up some decent blocks and to make life difficult. And it did require working around in that regard. When we look at the top line stats, Chelsea were given 67% of the possession, West Ham with 33%. Our expected goal, 1.37 to their 1.2. 2 big chances apiece. We had 22 total shots to their 14. 4 goalkeeper saves from Big Phil, and then 3 Big Philip. I don't know. We'll come up
Big
with something good for him.
Phil. Uncle Phil. That's what we'll call him.
He looks a little too young to be an uncle, but maybe
Yeah.
who knows? That's fair. And then the one random stat that I want to pull out from Harry Edwards was it came from Opta, but it's the first time Chelsea have won a Premier League game home when trailing at halftime since, wait for this, December 20, wait for it, 2013, Nick.
it's been it's been 11 plus years since that has taken place. That is
It
a
predated the
fucking
podcast. It
yeah.
predates the podcast. That's how old that stat is.
Yeah, by a full 8 months, it predates the podcast. That's an insane stat to think about. We've been doing this for a long time, and also it just shows how not clutch we've been for the better part of a decade. I mean, that's crazy. Home form, something to worry about. I think just kind of not there yet.
And do you have a shithouse moment of the match too, Nick? I know you like to come up with them. And on a win, it's that much easier to put it together.
Yeah, it didn't have one until very late on, actually. But as the ball was pinging around late and Chelsea were kind of well into stoppage time, Trev Chalobah had the opportunity to break one Muhammad Kudus ankles, and he did it with aplomb, and that was very, very interesting and fun to watch. But yeah, it was a real scrap of a game. I mean, just not super flowy. A lot of balls pinging around, just kind of not of the highest quality, I would say, Dan. So I will give Trev the little dummy on Kudus, probably mine.
11 fouls for Chelsea, 10 for West Ham. 3 cards for us, though, and 1 card for them. Because math, that's how it works. And officiating is all extremely subjective. But look, we
Sure.
want to get into the conversation around just maybe getting some luck heading our way. The subs, Mareska's comments after the match. We're going to do that after our first ad break. Stay tuned. We are back. Okay, Nick. So it was a kind of mid first half performance, if we're being very fair.
It was very bad. It was not even mid. It was just bad.
I mean, we had possession though. We made shots. There was some exciting movement from Madueke into the box. We were finding ways in versus, sometimes we've really struggled about even getting into the box in games like this where you're playing against a defensive 10 that really wants to make life difficult for you. So I don't know. I mean, I at least felt more positive about at least that first 10 to 15 minutes. Again, it flipped. It was which is why I'm saying it's mid. There was a good section of that first half and there was a bad section of that first half.
I think we watched different first halves, Dan, because I think whereas this team, you could legitimately say this team over the last the bad run of form, let's just call it month and a half, 2 months, whatever, where we have typically started very fast and would get an early goal and all that sort of stuff. I thought we looked very sluggish today. I thought that it felt like the weight of the building was on those guys when they came out of the tunnel. It's a transfer deadline day. There's a lot going on at the club. There are a lot of teammates who were not there. In fact, Axel Disasi got announced during the game that he was going to go to Aston Villa, which
Wild.
can I just say, can we not do games on transfer deadline day ever again? It's so fucked. We're at such a competitive disadvantage with that every other team isn't. It's really bad. Anyway, it just felt really weird. It felt like a weird atmosphere. It's a second Monday game in as many weeks. It's 3 weeks essentially for 2 Monday games, which is awful. It's a tough atmosphere. And I think there's some legitimate concern based on the way the team has played over the last 8 to 10 weeks that, while there's a huge opportunity in front of us, the crowd was also maybe not so enthusiastic to see the production on the field. And I was pretty concerned, I'll be honest with you. It felt lackadaisical to me. It felt maybe lacking some of that trademark early intensity that we've seen from this team. And I was not at all surprised when Jared Bowen scored the goal. I just wasn't. I mean, they're kind of a counterpunch sort of team. They're kind of a scrappy, group. And Bowen is one of the few players alongside Kudus in that squad that could actually threaten goal. And both he and Muhammad Kudus kind of ran all over us a little bit. And so to me, that was there weren't many good moments for us in the first half, and I could point to a handful for them. That's all I'm saying.
So the thing I would say is we had 9 shots in the first 40 minutes. And like you could argue, well, wait a minute, like they're all not really good. I mean, there were some good blocks from West Ham. You know,
Sure.
not
Okay.
necessarily the shot being great or not great, but we had two on target in the first half. They had three. I mean, they didn't have their first like truly legitimate shot until the Bowen goal in the 42nd minute. So I mean, they did have two before that. So they had three shots in the same period that we had nine. We had more possession of the ball. Like we were still owning possession. We were giving ourselves an opportunity. We were having the opportunity to reset. Like so, I think it's more we had an element of control. Now we were not necessarily converting it at the very end of it, which I think is the most frustrating part for this team and continues to be like an underlying narrative of like we do take shots, but they're not high quality. I just felt like there was still more of a springboard in that first half for us to have capitalized and like ran away with this than West Ham getting us caught out on the one and getting able to get that one across the line. Like, I don't think they were as dangerous in that first half as maybe the scoreline would have predicted.
I feel like the team looked really frustrated playing against another low block.
Sure. I agree with that.
And because of the way that the team was set up initially, Enzo Fernandez wasn't able to get in the advanced areas that he likes to get into. I think that was a real problem because we couldn't really overwhelm them with numbers. They were doing the same thing that every other team during this run has done, which is double or triple team Cole Palmer, make sure that he wasn't able to get into dangerous areas. The one chance that he does get, the immaculate save is made, and it's just an incredible moment. But you're looking at this, and at the end of the first half, there's some boos coming off because I think folks were a little upset with the way the defensive side of the game was being played more than anything else. But I think there's some genuine frustration going around the building, like not this again,
Yeah.
not another team camped out with 11 behind the ball out to frustrate us with one counterattack, one punch in the mouth. And, I think the other thing I would just kind of call out here is Reece James in the first half, because of the way that Maresca set up the system. Now, this may change, I think, based on what we saw in the second half a little bit, but Reece James' role is so limited. He's more of a defensive catch-all, and you could tell even him passing the ball to Caicedo or to Enzo Fernandez or to even Cole Palmer, who was dropping deeper and deeper and deeper trying to get the ball. There was some real frustration building up there. They were pointing at each other. They were yelling at each other. And I think like that to me kind of showed the mood in the first half. And it was echoed by the fans at halftime. It was not a fun place to be. And our friends who were there can probably attest to that.
Yeah, it's great in theory to have him crossing into the box, like in a day where we had someone like Olivier Giroud in the center or Diego Costa in the center. This would be a recipe for a more guaranteed goal. But when
Sure.
the two people who are competing are Nico Jackson and Marc Cucurella against Premier League
Striker
defenders.
Mark Cucurella to you, sir. Okay,
That's
please.
true. Yeah, Air Force One absolutely not delivering on the day. 2 for 6 though for Reese in terms of accurate crosses there. It's like great in theory, absolutely a threat every time, could always be converted into a goal. Not necessarily the profile of players you want on the receiving end to try to make something happen there. I mean, he was very good in his aerial duels individually in the day, 3 for 3, was 1 for 2 in his ground duels. I thought this was maybe a step up again in his performance and his rehabilitation piece here. Like I'm liking the fact that we're seeing, Yan, you and I talked about it a couple weeks ago. We wanted to see him come back
Yeah.
and be worked into the lineup the right way, to be thought about from an intentional standpoint from the physios and the training
Mhm.
staff and the management on how do you keep him healthy the rest of the season, because he has a extreme amount of value at his best to this team and this side. And so like that's another positive thing to see. I think talking about the defensive elements though, it was not the best day out for Levi Colwell. I think he
Hasn't been the
had
best 10 weeks for Levi Colwell, my guy.
he did have a bit of a tough duty against one Kudus, and had a very errant pass backward that was absolutely capitalized on for that goal. I mean, you got to be plugged in, and that was that's the type of mistake that has been costing us this season. And like, he is not the only person on this team. He's just the person on the day who made the mistake leading to the goal. We've seen Sanchez do that before. We've seen Ashley Zassi. We've seen Tosin. We've seen Cole involved with these. Like, it is not just saying one player was going to be the sole fault for Chelsea not performing well today, because
No,
like
no.
it's just as much on the attack as it is everyone else. But like, needs to find a way to rekindle his form, particularly if Trev's going to be available. If Tosin can step up his game here, like we could have for the first time this season, I think we can have a legitimate conversation around like, what is that best center back pairing? And like Levi Cole maybe is not in pen, it's maybe in pencil now.
Let's think about it this way. Let's think about how upset people were
Do
getting
it.
with Robert Sanchez for the errors leading to goal. And I know that Levi Colwill has, at least in my estimation, he has a very high ceiling as a player. Has he consistently? He's going to be one that's going to be interesting to evaluate at the end of this season. And I want to wait until the end of the season because I want to get like 2 full years of Levi Colwill on tape so that we can really analyze a pretty decent clutch of matches there. I think it will be a fair assessment after year 2. You want to take the first season, the second season, start to figure out who this guy really is. For how big he is and his frame and his speed and all the physical attributes that he is getting bullied a lot this year. And he's getting turned really easy. He is not as sure-footed on the passing front as I would have thought with his immense skill in that area. And I think what was really disappointing about that moment was not that, Muhammad, if you've been listening to this podcast for any number of years, you know how much I love Muhammad Kudus. I think he's a phenomenal player.
You're a
I
fan of
really
him?
do. I am. I wanted him really bad. The sporting directors dashed my dreams once again. But he is a really, really good player. He's tricky. He's technical. He has the most dribbles in the Premier League this season. He is not one to be trifled with. He's on a really bad West Ham team that will be getting better with the acquisitions that they made and probably be somewhere like 12th, 11th by the end of the year, my estimation. Like, this is a real player. What frustrated me about the moment leading to the goal, and I think some of the rest of his performance, was the yelling at the other players to do their job when you're clearly the one who didn't do his job. He then puts out the Instagram post that says, "Oh, this is on me. I got to get better. I'll work toward it, whatever." I hate those Instagram posts. But I just think he's a little lost right now, Dan, to be honest with you. I think he is overthinking it or underthinking it. I don't think that he's in a great rhythm with whatever center back he's being paired with. You have Air Force One playing striker up top, putting a ton of pressure on him to man that whole left side. And I do think it is partially why there was a change in system in the second half, because they were clearly targeting him and isolating him. They weren't clearly targeting or isolating Tosin.
Yeah. I mean,
and just being honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, you did see much more of a back three in that second half with the kind of the switching and the system there. And I mean, I think it's a fair point to talk about. Like, it's all related to the subs, right? And like we have, and many people have hammered on Enzo Maresca over the last month and a half.
Is that a pun for today, Dan?
It was not, but there you go. You're welcome. It's a Monday evening special for you on time of recording. This is a manager who has been receiving a lot of criticism for how he's using the squad, for what he's been doing, and maybe not managing, not getting this team across the line in several of the last run of fixtures that Chelsea have had, leading to us going from a very comfortable position in a top 4 finish to potentially being outside of it to being back in it, but walking a tightrope at the moment. And this was a much better response from him, much more proactive. I mean, you could argue if you had a 51st minute sub, maybe you could have made it at halftime. That you could debate that, but here we are, and like we won the game, so I'm not going to split super hairs on that one. But you take 2 people off in the 52nd minute. You have an idea that you're going to make some additional changes in the 61st. You've refreshed 4 of the players to drive through into the end of the game. You saw Pedro Neto come in for
Mhm.
Sancho. You saw Guiu come in for Jackson. Now, obviously, that seems to maybe been a little bit forced due to the the knock that he was carrying. But both our players decided they wanted to do some splits today, so that was interesting. And then Malagusto and Kunku coming on for James Madueke. One of the better and most memorable uses of subs we've seen from
Mhm.
Enzo Maresca in his time at Chelsea, and produce the result, right? Like Pedro Neto gets the goal. We've talked about the fact that like we've
Mhm.
subbed on players, we've subbed on multiple attackers, and they don't do anything. And this is the opposite of that. We subbed on attackers and they actually contributed and scored a goal.
It's a really tricky line to walk, right? Because I think the manager has shown that he wants to trust the initial lineup he's set and give them as much time as they can to impact the game. But I think you and I and everyone else knows that if you bring an attacker or someone on to change the game with 10 minutes left, it's almost impossible for that player, unless it's the ghost of Lionel Messi, to go in and have an extraordinary impact in 10 minutes. They might not even touch the ball in 10 minutes, or they'll touch it twice, right? And unless you're Erling Holland and you only need one touch to score a goal, and the rest of the game you can kind of wander around aimlessly, that's a really difficult proposition for someone like Neto or someone like, you throw in Nkunku or Giu or whatever. You need to give them time to work into the game. I mean, better part of 40 minutes for Mark Giu today is a big statement, right? It's suggesting to me, and I think it was a pretty important moment, that one, if Jackson's not healthy, then you are the striker, not Nkunku. And two, Jackson, you haven't been good enough today. Like you need to pick it up. And if you're both healthy, maybe it's not only Philip Jorgensen who's going to get a big call the next match. Maybe we're making a different call, right? Similarly, Jaden Sancho underperforming, right? You had the one shot, it was okay, but I mean, you're not making a big enough impact in these games. The take on ability, the thing that you're supposed to, you're like the street cage football guy that you are, did nothing against Emerson, or whoever from West Ham. I mean, Suchek, who would check. Like, I don't know, man. We need more out of you, right? And so we're subbing you early. It's a big call. And Neto comes on, who has been underwhelming himself. He's heard, I think, with his little celebration today, he's been hearing the stuff that's being said about him. Comes on, makes a huge impact. You does some important stuff too. I think just brings some energy to the team. And then I think crucially, the system changes a little bit, right? This is what I wanted to talk about. You move from the strict 4-2-3-1 inverted to, oh, we're going to play with the width now. We're going to make sure that Nkunku actually slots in from the left and plays what is his fucking normal position that he's played his entire career and been really successful at. And that the width from Cucurella, the width from Malagusto when he comes on for Reece James, and the three center backs eventually when Chalaba comes on are going to provide some more standard types of overlapping width instead of being slotted in and forcing the wingers to do everything one on one when it hasn't worked. It's a massive change. And it's something I think a lot of people probably looked at and were like, holy fuck, where has this been all year? Like, it's a big deal for me. Not maybe
Oh,
I'm reading into it too much. You can tell me, but I think it's important.
no, I think it showed to me a willingness to deviate from
Mhm.
what you've decided is going to work, understanding how critical this was. And, you saw in the post match press conferences that there was an awareness from Enzo Maresca that like this results, like that the league had opened up an opportunity for Chelsea. Like he was very like, hey, like other teams helped us out. And like there was an opportunity to make these 3 points count in a much more important way because other teams were -3 in the hole this weekend.
Mhm.
And so to go +3 on a Newcastle, to go +3 on a Bournemouth, to have City lose and to get +3 on
Mhm.
them, like all of those so critical
Mhm.
against a West Ham team that has been objectively poor the entirety of the season. Like this is the you should have beat Ipswich type of game, right? Like where it could have gone very poorly if you don't respond the right way. And so I do think it is a credit to Maresca for making the changes. I also think the way the players who were subbed on attacked the game, there was definitely a little bit more energy and fight
Hmm.
when we made those changes. And, it's whether or not the players who were on initially are just maybe worn down and are not
Yeah.
conditioned enough anymore. Like that could be a reality. I do think Cole Palmer got better in the second half.
Hmm.
Like he looked good. Some of the horizontal moves that he was making, like back and forth to take two or three people like out of position and to give himself a passing lane or a lane to move. Like that was really exciting to see from him again. Um,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, part of your job is a sub too, and I think this is just something that's more of like an eye test thing than it is a
just go on
stats
the
thing.
resume like builder here, like
Yeah.
credit, like tools for being a great sub.
Yeah. Are you, we in American sports we'll use like glue guy as a term, right? Like, are you a guy who will bring the team together in a number of different ways, right? Through your play, through your energy, whatever. Bringing a shit ton of energy as a sub is a really, really important thing, right? Are you there to inject life into this team? And can you, with some extra effort, like your shot out of a cannon, like Pedro Neto did, like Mark Guiu did early on in the second half, can you inspire some hope in the rest of your guys who are maybe struggling a little bit, right? And they just played, in my estimation, a pretty poor first half. And they did. And Pedro Neto, who again hasn't been extraordinary for us this year after a big money move. Um, Jorge Mendez, you can stop calling. We're not picking up anymore. I think we're all good. Uh, this was a big moment for him. This was I know I'm gonna start on the left with Jaden Sancho. That's who I'm coming in for. But once the system changes up a little bit, Madueke comes off, I get shifted to the right. I get to do a little bit more of what I really like to do. That's a big thing. And then I think the adjustment too of Nkunku not getting lost up front, right? Not having to be the focal point, but being the guy who can kind of interweave in those tiny little channels, right? Is a big deal. I think the way that you use these guys is important, but I think what they actually bring in to the second half is equally as important. Are you a person with your skill and talent and energy that can have an immediate impact and strike a little bit of fear into your opponent who had a pretty easy time of it? And they did.
Yeah, only last thing maybe is just I know we had a lot of people ask about Sanchez and Jorgensen and Big Phil on the day, and
Big
look,
Phil.
the replacement metric is just did you make an error conceding a goal? And if you don't do that, you have made a massive step forward to a
Oh,
base
man.
level expectation that we would have for any goalkeeper between the sticks for the men's senior team or any really Chelsea team. So I guess you met the expectation. And that is all I'm looking for from either of our keepers between the sticks this season, and hopefully an occasional wonder save here or there. But I think it's a maybe overblown issue, as you would say, Nick, and just a little too much focus on it when, it is a problem. Goalkeeping at Chelsea is a problem. There's a lot of other problems I would point to first about that, though.
Yeah, I think just to put it out there, I don't know who Jorgensen's going to become. I know who Sanchez is. I think Georgi Petrovic is better than both of them. I still don't think we have a real number one goalkeeper out of the entire group of 18 goalkeepers that we have. Maybe they will prove me wrong, right? I don't think that there's much that Jorgensen could have done on the goal today. Just want to say that out loud. I think it was a pretty easy goal for West Ham to score. So, but don't make mistakes is a really good place to start. And another interesting part of this one, Dan, is that there was a clear directive: under pressure, go long. Don't don't mess about. Don't
Fantastic. Love it.
don't put yourself in a terrible situation. Just go long, and we'll deal with it later. And I think that's an important adjustment as well.
All right, we're going to take a last ad break when we get back. Just a couple of thoughts on Rescue's comments after the game, and then a look at the winter transfer window that was absolutely a wet blanket. So
Womp womp womp.
stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so Mariska had a couple of comments, Nick, after the game. I'll run you through a few of them and you can react to whichever ones you'd like to. He talked about the fact that today was a tough game mentally when West Ham come here and sit back with 10 players behind the ball. It's not easy. You have to be mentally
Mhm.
strong and need to be patient. We had more than 10 shots in the first half. We had clear chances in the first half, but unfortunately missed the target. We were losing, and in the end, we won. Very succinct description of how the game actually played out.
Well said.
Then he also followed up with, in this moment, Robert Sanchez needs rest, and Philip Jorgensen was very good, which I think we agree with there. Then he talked about the defensive mistakes. I'm not concerned. It's the way we play. Sometimes defensive mistakes happen. Keeper mistake, number 9 misses the goal. That's football. It happens. The important thing is to continue. I think maybe we would take a little bit of, maybe have some notes on this one.
Yeah, I mean I mean, we know that this is the high risk, high reward football that he wants
Yeah.
to play, right? I mean, it doesn't make it any easier for those of us who grew up with the 2004, 2005, 15 goals allowed in the league defensive performance season that we all know and love. It's very awkward to watch Chelsea concede easy goals like this. But I also think there's just some personal responsibility on some of these things that these players have to take on defensively for some of these errors. And, you know, again, I would ask if you're grading Robert Sanchez based on errors leading to goal, you should probably be doing that with every other outfield player as well.
And then the last comment said Nico and Mark are both said to me that they're okay. So hopefully no one is injured. Obviously, they both, yeah, Caballero was helping Diu down the tunnel a little bit, giving him some
His looked
extra.
worse. His
His did
looked
look
worse.
worse. Potentially a groin injury incoming for Mark Diu would be my
Yeah.
guess. And then
Yeah.
Nico Jackson, obviously got a little bit of a knee situation, hamstring situation there. Hopefully he's okay. But would lead us into the conversation, Nick, about wouldn't you feel better? Wouldn't you have felt better on February 4th, 2025, if the Chelsea men's senior team had one extra striker of note in this 22, 25 person organization?
Dan, I don't know what you're talking about. David Datro Fofana is back, and I think we're all very excited about that. And
he was the striker we were promised.
yeah, he was the prince who was promised, and he is a prince. Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about it. It is
Okay, give me your reaction to like where you thought we might go, which is like, hey, we might bring in 1 to 2 players to reinforce in key areas to contribute. And maybe you could argue that Trev Chalobah coming back does give us reinforcement in one key area.
sure.
So you
Yes.
could argue that is a very positive move we made. But that was kind of it. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, incomings, it's really Trev and Aaron Anselmino, who is going to stay with the club because we've used all of our international loan spots. So well done and orchestrated there. Gaga Slonina is back at the club and rehabilitating his injury. Dasher Fafana, who knows what's going to happen there. Wiley was then loaned out to Watford, so that's not an addition. So you've really added 3 players this window, one of whom will likely play significant minutes. Additionally,
Don't sound so excited there.
you have also elected to have some folks depart.
Permanent or
Well,
lots of outgoing business, right? That's what we were told. There's gonna be tons of outgoing business. We're gonna get ready for
well,
summer. We're gonna sell when the market was there for us.
let's just hold our horses there, Dan,
Wait a minute.
because
What are you telling me? That didn't happen?
uh, no, not especially. Cesare Cassidy, who we purchased for 20 million euros, we sold for
Craziest loan
13.
saga. Craziest saga of a
Oh my
window.
God.
We took that one down to the wire.
13 million euros to Torino with a 25% sell on clause. So when he sold for 20 million pounds, which we have already bought him for. Anyway,
When Strasbourg buys him.
yeah, that would be just the circle of life.
When Chelsea buys him and then loans him back to Strasbourg.
Joao Felix, player who was bought for a shit ton of money this summer, a player that wasn't really required, but because Samuel Marodian was that saga didn't go anywhere, decided we were going to buy Joao Felix so we could acquit ourselves well in PSR. He gets loaned out to AC Milan for coverage of a loan fee of 5 million euros. Renato Vega, of course, goes to Juventus for 4 million euros.
Great first
Carney
game too.
Chukwuemeka gets a very good loan to Borussia Dortmund. That also could have happened this summer. Questions there. Ben Chilwell gets a loan, and I think we're covering a lot of his salary to go play at Crystal Palace. I'm very happy for him, obviously. Caleb Wiley then goes to Watford on loan from his loan at Strasbourg. So, Dan, and we're missing one because late in the transfer window, Axel Disasi is going to Aston Villa to play Champions League football, baby. That's what he wanted to do.
Okay, you want to talk about big brain moves? Okay, I want to paint the case for you here.
All right, here we go.
We've been down on Axel Disasi. The stock is low at the moment here, and we think it can actually get lower. And so what we've done is planted a double agent
get lower
in this Aston Villa team, who may or may not contribute to them shipping a couple extra goals, falling out of European competitions heading next year, losing out on revenue that would be incoming if they were in the Champions League or they were in Europa League or if they were in the Conference League. They're not going to get any of that. So not only did we get the money for the loan fee, but we're robbing Aston Villa as a club from all of their commercial revenue that would be coming in from European competition next year. This might be the best single transfer that we've orchestrated in the winter window.
He was rumored to go to Spurs earlier in the day.
Wasn't going to be destructive enough. Wasn't going to be destructive enough.
Although it would have really been something if he had dropped them all the way down on the table through a series of comical errors.
Actually, getting them relegated would have been equally hilarious, and I could have taken either of those. Yeah.
But yeah, no,
but best of luck to him. Like, again, he's a human, and we're making fun. But it's really more making fun of the fact that, like, our club did nothing of true value to make the squad better, other than trimming a few players out so that your trainings are more manageable.
Our sporting structure has a lot of egg on their face right now. I know saying that a lot of people are listening going, hey, you idiot, that say more swear words and be angry. We will have the opportunity. We're going to do a full squad assessment of their 5 windows and give a realistic grade based on stats and a little more facts than just the vibes that I currently have in my heart. But it's bad business across the board here. I mean, you bought players to loan them immediately. You're bringing back players who should have been with the squad all along. It looks like a lot of mismanagement. And if you ask me right now, are Chelsea a better squad for the second half of the season than they were for the first half? I think the answer is unequivocally no. Unequivocally no. You lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Really 6, because I don't really count Caleb Wiley in there because he hasn't really played for us. But you lose 6 players. You really bring back 1. And while the squad is slightly smaller, we are really, really. Oh, we add. Sorry, this isn't a totally. We added the French midfielder as well. This morning we need to get the name for that here because I don't know why.
I didn't see anything official though. Like, obviously we saw Fabrizio's Here We Go. There was nothing on the club website after the fact though. So just like
they usually take a while to announce.
I know, but like there were deal sheets in. So like it didn't show up on the Premier League's tracking website. Like, so I just wanted to be cautious that like it did not get fully announced.
Interesting. I mean, Chelsea were set to sign a couple of players for summer, which is really cool when you don't know what the hell is going to happen. But yeah, it's a really interesting, sort of window, and I don't know what to feel about it other than we're not in as strong of a position as we should be. We don't have a backup striker. We are really, really thin at left back now. Mark Cucurella goes down. I mean, Malagusto, I guess, fills in. When Malagusto gets hurt, Dan, welcome an academy guy in. I mean, you're going back 3. I don't know. I mean, you're really putting yourself with now 26 possible matches through the end of the season, 14 in the Premier League, 7 in the UECL, and 5 in the FA Cup. Potentials for those tournaments, obviously, to really be shorthanded, and
Yeah.
it's a difficult thing to kind of understand why we didn't bring back one of our 2 midfielders on loan, Matthias Amugo. So that he might contribute here in midfield. Who knows? But he's nowhere near the player that Andre Santos or Leslie Ugochukwu is at this point of his career. It's very, very odd. I don't think you can leave this conversation feeling any way, but this was a failure of a window.
Not when you've bought players in the summer and you're already loaning them out in the winter. Like we
It's
are
bad.
seeing some very interesting business. And again, we'll do a full. We've got a full pod plan on this because I
Yeah.
think you look back at all the signings that we have made now into the post Roman era, and some of them were made by the ownership group before we had sporting directors, and some were made by the sporting directors. And I think that's like a delineation too, because there was a different philosophy in both those periods. But like the number of players that we have purchased and then sold within 2 windows or 1.5 seasons is pretty wild.
Like
Now I think the other thing I would say though is like, thankfully, like Arsenal really didn't reinforce like that. I mean, so like a couple of the other teams around us who
Villa
like
and City did, though. I mean, Villa had a really, really great window.
Newcastle did not though.
True. I mean, there are ways to be smart, though. I think Villa was a very, very smart club this window. I think City obviously reinforced as much as they could, having the poor performance that they did, and getting fucking waxed at the weekend didn't help. But I mean, they bought another midfielder today. They got Nico Gonzalez in,
Yep.
right, for a huge transfer fee. There was business to be done here. We just didn't do it, and it's going to be telling. Whatever happens from this point forward, we've now had 2 windows for Enzo Maresca, and I would argue that he's no better off right now than he was coming into the job in July.
Well, look, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this
Yeah.
one in the comments on YouTube or in our Discord community, because there's definitely plenty of post window discussion that we can have. But look, Chelsea are going to get back at it very, very quick here. Valentine's Day fixture against Brighton, because why not just mess up the calendar a little bit more?
What a
FA
love
Cup
in,
fixture against Brighton. Like,
Come on.
we got a Brighton back to back that we're getting into, which is crazy. Like, so you got the Saturday match and then a Friday match. So we're actually getting these like a little bit of like elongated like recovery time frames, I guess, or it feels like it's like odd matches, like Monday, Saturday, Friday. Who knows? But Brighton twice in a row, be great. It'd be just great to beat them twice, to advance
Yeah.
in the FA Cup, and then also to beat Brighton in the league, like many teams have done recently. That would be absolutely phenomenal. But Nick, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Uh, yeah, I'm thankful that this window is open and no more silly decisions can be made, and that we don't have to talk about stuff for a while on the transfer front. I mean, I really do hope that this was a big moment for this team to kind of get over the hump in one, and really, kind of exercise some demons, if you will, on how to win a football match when you're not necessarily playing your best. We're going to need that. I mean, the schedule gets much harder as we move through the next couple of months, right? Your Brighton, Villa, Southampton, Leicester. That's kind of it's an okay patch for February. Arsenal, Tottenham will be there for Tottenham, obviously. Brentford, you know, Ipswich, and then you close the season, Liverpool, Newcastle United, Forest. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. I think playing Brighton right after they just got waxed 7-0 is not going to be easy. They're going to be up for that. They don't want to get waxed twice in a row as bad as they just did. But, we also had their number in the first match. So if we can get back to any sort of form against the team, it's a team that plays a silly high line and can be had on the counterattack. So hopefully we can get it done.
Nick, monkey paw type of conversation. You can beat Brighton, but it means that you only win one. You taking the FA Cup win, or you taking the Premier League win?
Man, that's a that's a tough one. Boy, with our precarious position in the league, I think I got to go league, don't you?
I think I'm going league only because I feel very, very strongly about our UECL chances and getting a trophy this season.
Yeah.
I would love to win the FA Cup again. It has been far too long for this team. But I just feel like we are not as strong as a unit as we believe we are. And, again, I would love to win every game. I would love for both
Yeah.
of those games to be massive victories for this team. I'm just operating in the realm of reality where we are not as consistent as we'd like to be. And as much as we might win one, we might lose the other in very horrid fashion. So trying to be optimistic, but also realistic about where this team is at and the fact that we are growing. It's still a young team. It's still an inexperienced manager in the Premier League. And there's room to grow.
Chelsea Football Club, listen to me, please.
All right, this is direct to you. Direct from Nick to Chelsea Football Club.
Between now and March 16th, which is Arsenal away, we have 5 matches to get our act together, start playing some really good, fluid football again. It would give me the highest level of pleasure possible if we could go to the Emirates and do the casual 3 points celebration, stay humble, whatever thing that they just did to City to them at their own place. Chelsea Football Club, listen to me very closely. For everything that I've said this year, if this were to take place, I would take a sabbatical from criticism for you for a period of, let's call it 5 matches, a 5-match reprieve. If we could go and
the listeners might be willing that one to happen more so than the club.
Channel your fucking energy in the appropriate place right now. If we could go do the humble 3 points thing to them at their place, effectively knocking them out of the title race, I don't know if there would be a greater joy this season than that, Dan. So this is my plea. A 5-match reprieve from any and all criticism. I have to be extraordinarily positive and effusive of praise for 5 matches, regardless of result. That's a tough one. I feel like I'm offering up quite a bit here. I feel like it's a fair trade. March into the Emirates, steal one over on them. Oh, bam. Let's go.
All right. Well, we will will that into existence, if only for the type of quality content that we'll produce on the podcast. In addition to feeling really good about Chelsea Football Club's results. But that's going to do it for this episode, though. Thank you so much to coming in and joining us for a little bit of a Graham Potter beatdown, a little bit of overjoyed feeling at watching.
We gave everything we had tonight, damn. We just
the
gave
boys
it all.
Gave everything they had on this one, and hopefully you did as well in terms of listening experience. So enjoy this one. Enjoy a Chelsea win. Don't enjoy the way we do business as a club right now. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.